So, good morning, good afternoon, everybody, whatever part of the world you're currently listening to our video blog and podcast. Sharing um, the funeral service for Mr. Gonzalo Lira, the Hispanic American um, former journalist and prisoner of war who had perished in captivity in Ukraine. Mr. Lira actually had tried to de-escalate the situation, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and he tried to save as many lives as he could, and tried to bring both sides to diplomatically and amicably sort things out and not escalate the war conflict that is now an ongoing conflict, you know, between Russia and Ukraine. 2 year conflict that's been ongoing. That is, basically displaced a lot of people, disrupted various markets and economies in the region, brought a lot of political, head banging going on among countries throughout Europe. And, it's just very unnecessary, in my opinion. It could have been de-escalated and lives could have been preserved and things would have, be back to normalcy, and fortunately, when people are not thinking about providing a solution. Okay, and when people are not interested in peace and they're not interested in sorting things out amicably, things like this happen. And unfortunately, so many people have perished, and that includes Mr. Gonzalo Lira, who's a father, and he's got two young children, um, and an aging father, as well as you know um, a community of people around the world that simply wanted to learn about the conflict in Ukraine. And he was basically sharing material that he piggyback off from. He just basically got the material to inform the English speaking public about what's going on in Ukraine. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you guys a brief video of the funeral service for Mr. Gonzalo Lira in Santiago, Chile, courtesy of Interferencia Chile. I guess this is a local broadcasting news agency or organization in Santiago, Chile. And, please lift the Gonzalo Lira family in your thoughts and prayers in this very difficult time for the family. Um, you know, preserving democracy, freedom of speech and human rights is what keeps it keeps this world intact. You know, without dissent, without democracy, without freedom of speech, then we won't have a civilization. We won't have laws, regulations. We won't have any form of cohesion when there is no democracy. Okay, folks. So it's extremely unfortunate that a Hispanic American journalist had to, you know, become a martyr just so that the world would actually wake up and pause for a little bit. Let's try to you know understand why we have the rule of law, why we have the, freedom of speech, why do we need to preserve human lives? Okay, if we don't understand the purpose of preserving human rights, the purpose of democracy, the purpose of freedom of speech, then folks, we've completely disintegrated as a civilization, as people groups, as society. Okay, folks, I don't care what part of the world you're located. When dissent and freedom of speech and the overall preservation of human rights is not at the front and center, you know, agenda of the decision makers of your country, then you're in a major mess. You're definitely having to, you know, climb out of a rut that you're probably never going to be able to escape if you don't understand why democracy and freedom of speech and the basic human rights of individuals needs to be preserved. All right, folks, I'll go ahead and share this video and we'll try to opine a little bit more regarding the, untimely passing of Mr. Gonzalo Lira. We're just simply wanting to help to escalate the situation between Russia and Ukraine. He tried to provide a solution to, basically incorporate diplomacy in a part of the world that claims to be a democratic society. Okay, folks. All right. I mean, this is just, you know, very hard to watch. It's in Spanish, so I'm not gonna turn on the audio. It is closed caption, so you can read it if you're able to read in Spanish. Um, I'm just kind of gonna basically, you know, play, you know, a, a, a side, a side commentator regarding this whole funeral event. So I believe this is a church where Mr. Lira had attended when he was living in Chile as a kid. As you all know, he is a Hispanic American. He was born and somewhat raised in California, and he also had lived with his family in New York, and eventually, I guess off and on he would commute between the U.S. and Chile during his teenage years. So his service is taking place at his childhood quasi, semi family church in Santiago, Chile. And there isn't any English content that I could find regarding his service. So I guess this is the closest that y'all are gonna get as far as get information pertaining to his service that took place in Santiago, Chile. So if there's anyone out there, or any of his followers that made a video in English that you would like for us to share and talk about, please let me know. So this is Mr. Gonzalo Lira Sr. Um, and that's Gonzalo when he was getting ready to, you know, transition into looking for a way for him to preserve his life. He tried to escape, Ukraine, but unfortunately he was detained at the border. So this is Mr. Gonzalo Lira giving his theology to his son, his only son, in Spanish. Um, and I believe these are his family members, friends, and acquaintances. that came to pay their last respect to Mr. Gonzalo Lira. So that's in Santiago, Chile. And again, this is inside Mr. Gonzalo Lira's church when he was in Santiago, Chile, as I believe teenager, pre-adolescence. And then I believe he returned to the U.S. to attend college in the States. And this is the urn where Mr. Gonzalo's ashes arrived in Santiago, Chile, to his father. As you all know, he was cremated after he had died in Ukraine. Um, and as far as what I understand, his family had requested an autopsy to be done on Mr. Gonzalo's body, but that was not honored. But instead, he was cremated, and a few weeks later, his ashes was sent um, to his father in Santiago, Chile. He's now residing in Santiago, Chile. Um, but both of his father and Mr. Gonzalo are both of them are Americans. They're citizens. Obviously they're Hispanic Americans. So the video is in Spanish. And like I said, if y'all know anybody that have made a video in English, please let us know, and we would be more than happy to share it on our platform. So imagine your son, imagine your loved one, especially, this grieving man having to eulogize his only son that he hasn't seen for many years. I believe just because Mr. Gonzalo Lira had relocated to live in Ukraine with his family. He's got two children there and a wife. So, yeah, imagine not seeing your loved one for many years and watching your loved one try to request assistance from his government and request assistance from the international community via his YouTube channel. And, um, you know, nothing was done, unfortunately. So, yeah, folks, really, really strange situation. So I thought, I honor Mr. Gonzalo Lira's legacy and, honor his contribution to peace, to democracy, to freedom of speech, to wanting to de-escalate the war conflict between Russia and Ukraine and preserve as many Ukrainian lives as possible, because it's what he had mentioned on his social media platform, on his YouTube channel, that he's actually trying to help as many Ukrainians as possible, the civilians in Ukraine, by de-escalating the war conflict. Okay, folks. And he was misinterpreted. His, um, overall, you know, um, dedication to preserving human lives was basically ignored. His aspiration to implement a diplomatic solution between Ukraine and Russia's war conflict um, weren't even, appreciated by Ukraine. And so it's so mind-boggling. It's very, I can't even put all everything into words, because if someone's trying to help your country and trying to help your people and preserve the lives of your, fellow people, fellow, Ukrainians, I would think that you would want to try to appreciate that, but unfortunately that didn't happen. Okay, folks, it's tragic, another loss of life. On top of so many thousands and thousands that have already perished in Ukraine. You know, so unnecessary war in my opinion. But with that said, I want to send my condolences to the Lira family, and hopefully, this war conflict between Russia and Ukraine would, end as soon as possible and to escalate the situation as soon as possible. I'm calling on all the European, governments and the U.S. government to, find a solution and a way to de-escalate the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and end the war and bring, the region back to normalcy. You know, I think there is no more need for any more lives to be, snuffed out, you know, in the year 2024. I mean, seriously, folks. That said, thank you for listening. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Take care. Bye bye.